I tend to find a lot of like highly driven, go-getter, overachiever, type A people. And the exact qualities that get people into that successful situation can also get them into an imbalance with like their cortisol, and DHEA is that counter hormone. So cortisol is breaking things down. You need that as part of your stress response, but then the DHEA is kind of the, counter to that allows your body to repair, recover. It's upstream of your testosterone, estradiol. And so I'll see that get off. And if in
This week, I interviewed Katie Hardie. Katie is a board-certified holistic nutritionist and FDN practitioner who helps high performers reclaim their energy, optimize nutrition, and achieve lasting results through bio-individual, science-driven programs. We discussed how most of your health gains will be done in the kitchen, along with what to buy when going to the grocery store, the importance of functional medicine, Katie's favorite tests for optimal health, and her one tip to get your body back to what it once was. Really enjoyed my interview with Katie. I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin, and I have Katie Hardie on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Holistic nutritionist, FDN practitioner like myself. And when did you start getting into health and wellness?
I mean, if we want to go way back, it's probably third grade with the Presidential Fitness Challenge test. Did you guys have those?
Yeah.
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 So like the pull-ups, sit-ups, shuttle run, all that. And I realized I liked doing that stuff and wanted to be better at it. And so I was like that kid who asked my mom and dad to like help train me, like run the mile, and they're kind of drawing straws, like, all right, who has to do it now? And as I got older, it was more about, all right, what do you eat for food to fuel the performance, the sports? And that's where got my information probably from Self and Shape magazine, which is basically like, don't touch the avocado, but go nuts with the white bread. And then I kind of realized that doesn't work for me. And so it's just kind of this ongoing process of, all right, I want to add on the personal training, the strength and conditioning, the nutrition. All right, now I know the things your body needs to eat, but how do you make it taste awesome? So the culinary school. So it just kind of layered on top of each other as, they say you learn the things that you need and then you help others with that too. So it's kind of been an ongoing journey.
Yeah. No, I love it. And the culinary side, I think, is really interesting because one of the things I always talk about is like, if you cook for yourself, like you 80% of the time, I think like that alone can just help improve your health. Maybe touch on how that's been an influence on you.
Hands down.
Yeah.
So I was definitely one of those people who subscribed to the calories in, calories out, work out more. I was definitely the overtrainer, because you can do that in your 20s and you can be just fine and you look fine on the outside. And then I did culinary school and I didn't have time to teach classes at the gym, to work out, to train for triathlons like I used to do. And so I was a little worried going into culinary school that that'd be a problem on my composition and physique. And long story short, everything we did in culinary school was fresh or real. There was nothing out of a bag, box, or can. And I was working out probably 10% of what I was doing prior to that and was the exact same. But I wasn't eating any of those like Costco prepackaged things or, food out. It was all scratch. And yes, granted, in culinary school, you're learning more of that French, technique, cuisine. And then after culinary school, I was shadowing and kind of interning with somebody, personal chefing. And so we just got a bunch of reps in, like, how do you take those concepts from culinary school and transition it into a home and, bang out a bunch of meals really fast for a family so you can be efficient with your time and give them what they need. And so for me, that was like life-changing because I was one of those people where I enjoyed cooking, but it was like, okay, you got to go find the recipe, you got to find the list, go to the grocery store, and then you have to follow it to a T. And it kind of was a little labor consuming. And I didn't get how people could just look in a fridge and be like, I'm just going to whip that up. And that was my goal. I was like, I just want to know how to like look into something and freestyle it. And that is something you don't need to go to culinary school for. I like try to teach people how to do that. And that was a like complete game changer for me. And that's when it really resonated that, all right, what you eat is probably 80, 90% of it. And I had a 20-year-old male I was working with recently, and he was shocked. He's like, I had no idea that like most of your gains in the gym come from the kitchen.
Mm.
And so I think cooking is one of those overlooked life skills that it is not often taught at school or at home. So, like, where do you learn it? You know, there's a lot of people are interested in it, but it's like, where do you get that? So, some people are self-starters and seek it out. But if you don't know what you don't know, it's like, well, where do you start?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like my wife and I cook a lot. I should say, she does a lot of it, but she's hasn't taken any classes or anything. Like you can keep it pretty simple, for the most part, right? And get it done. I think one of the biggest things is like just the preparation, making sure that you have what you need, and once that's like, then the rest is just like, takes a little bit of time, but we do a lot of like batch cooking, where you cook a bunch at once and then you have it for the week. Is that something that you recommend?
Yeah, I think anything that is valuable to you, you have to claim that real estate in your calendar. And like you said, you have to be prepared with that. So you have to have time in your week where you're actually going to go to the grocery store to get the products, ingredients that you want. And you also have to carve out some time at home to do something with it. Because the worst thing is if you spend the time and the money going there and then it like sits and rots in your fridge. So
Yeah.
it's kind of finding that balance between, all right, how often do I want to go to the grocery store? How frequently do I want to prep things? And I think the biggest misconception is that it's going to be expensive and very time consuming, and it doesn't have to be that way.
hmm What kind of tips would you give people? I mean, um, like for example, making things in bulk is probably a big one, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're going to do something for one night, maybe make it for so it works for like 3 nights.
For sure.
What other tips would you give someone that's
Yeah,
starting out?
so if you're going to the grocery store, I kind of like to divide it out. Okay, what are the proteins? So maybe get four different proteins, whether they're animal or not. I do animal products, and so I would get like some sort of beef, some sort of chicken, eggs, and seafood or pork, you know? So
Mhm.
pick out 4 or 5 proteins and then probably 5 to 8 veggies. And a lot of times people think of veggies as like its own category. That, like, if you're looking at macronutrients, veggies are absolutely a carbohydrate, and people usually just think like breads, pastas,
Mhm.
rice. And you don't have to actually eat any bread or pasta to have awesome carbohydrate recovery
Right.
components. It can be through like veggies. I mean, you can do the grains, but pick out 5 to 8 veggies because you're going to get a lot of recovery benefits, a lot of nutrients from the veggies. And then if you do grains, then grab some rice, some oats, potatoes, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, but kind of keep it real simple. Like, all right, X number of proteins, X number of veggies, get the fats that you want to have. Because once you have those in stocks, like some ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil, if you have like quality pork, like bacon, render the fat from that. That gives things awesome flavor. And then like a good salt, like a sea salt,
Mm.
pink Himalayan salt, and then lots of spices. I love spices because it just can make the same protein veggie combo completely different. You can go like Asian theme, you can go Mediterranean theme, you can go Mexican, and just kind of rotate it in a different way so you're not bored and tired of the same thing, but it's still simple to do.
Yeah, yeah. Keep it simple, like a carbohydrate, a protein,
Yes.
some spices, right?
Hmm.
And then, is there certain like cookbooks that you like to use? Like, are there ones, or do you just sort of wing it?
Well, now I wing it. It's funny you asked. Like, this is one, the Forever Young cookbook.
Okay.
I just happen to have that here because it's a lot of clean, like real foods.
Yeah.
Um, but now that I know how to make stuff, a really simple concept that you can apply to anything is salt, acid, fat. And so, a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't like vegetables. My kids don't like vegetables. Somebody doesn't like the vegetables. They're boring. Um, if and when you cook them in some sort of fat, so like let's take broccoli for example, put some ghee, which is clarified butter, on a pan, high heat, chop up the broccoli, put it on, sprinkle some good salt, and then squeeze some lemon because the lemon or the acid is what gives that pop. And so if you get the right balance between the salt, acid, fat, and then get the texture the way people like it, because texture is a huge thing. And it is like whether your goal is to put on muscle or like cut fat, like the food has to taste good to follow through with the plan. And real food should taste awesome. So what the salt, acid, fat does is it helps enhance the natural flavors of whatever the thing is. And then you get the texture dialed, and people are asking for seconds and thirds of vegetables, which shocks people.
Mm.
It's like guacamole too. Like if it doesn't have the lime, it turns brown. If it doesn't have the salt, you can't it shouldn't just taste like an avocado. It should taste like guacamole. And I've had tons of people say, oh, my kid or whoever doesn't like guacamole. But once you get that balance in the salt, acid, fat, all of a sudden it comes to life and they're eating it and everybody's surprised and happy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, for someone that doesn't like veggies, there's ways around it, right?
Hmm. Oh,
Uh,
and I was definitely one of those people growing up. I had a pretty bland, unexciting diet. I did not grow up with like all these exciting foods. I think the culture's definitely changed since growing up in the Midwest in like the 80s and 90s. And also just knowing what to do with the foods to make it taste great is a huge thing. I mean, I was a canned green bean girl, and the fresh ones didn't taste very good to me because I wasn't used to it. And when you're exposed to something and have it prepared in a way that you like it, you will eat it. But most people haven't had it prepared in the way they like it yet. It
mhm.
doesn't mean they're not going to like it. They just haven't been exposed to it yet. So they're probably not going to request or crave the thing that they don't know, right?
Yeah. And what else, what other like principles that you like to follow? I mean, obviously cooking for yourself is a big
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
What other things do you work on for yourself, for your kids, or even clients?
Yeah, food wise or outside of that.
Yeah, outside of that, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think getting outside every day, regardless of the weather, is pretty huge. Just getting exposed to that sun and
Hmm.
moving. From somebody who used to like go probably too big on training for races and things, simple as walking, that can
Yeah.
go a long way. And
Right.
it just for getting circulation, for regulating your nervous system. But lifting weights is a big thing for me, strength training. So
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of that. Stay balanced, stay strong.
I agree. Yeah, lifting weights has been a big part of my life, and we talk about walking a lot. Simple to do, simple not to do, right? It's like one of those things that that adds up over time,
It does.
and just getting outside. I mean, you're in
Yep.
Colorado, so you
Mhm.
got the beautiful mountains. I'm sure you go hiking. Do you go hiking a lot?
Yeah, I like to get out on the trails.
Yeah.
They're right outside your door, or less than 5 minutes away, so that can help. I mean, we do get interesting weather patterns here too, and it's winter more months than not. And you know, I think that's something people have gotten a little too comfortable being comfortable, and it's okay to like get uncomfortable, whether that's with strength training or the temperature or just, trying and learning new things in general. So I think getting comfortable with the uncomfortable is also part of that bigger picture of those are the stressors, as you know, from training people in the gym. In order to have a response that you want, you need to have that stressor first with the appropriate recovery.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, it's walking is one of those things that's easy to do and easy not to do. I think our culture has gotten very comfortable, like kind of being catered to and making everything really easy. So then we don't often get the results we want because we're not intentionally challenging ourselves anymore.
Yeah. And one of the things I like to balance the stressors out of what I was talking off before we got on was some type of spiritual practice. Like, I mean, for me, it's yoga. Uh, I think, I don't know. Every time I go, I think to myself how people like don't have some type of like meditation or yoga in their life. Is that something that you try to incorporate?
Yes, I love yoga. I don't teach it, but I like to go, and I even like the yin yogas that are more
Hmm.
restorative, really get into the fascia, stretching the muscles.
Hmm.
Um, have you heard of Qigong?
I've heard of yin. Is that just another version
So
of, yeah.
Qigong is kind of like a moving meditation, and it's like a little more Eastern medicine, something I got exposed to, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 years ago, because the person teaching me was like, you don't really seem like somebody who like sit really well, like initially, like obviously that's the goal. But for people like that, it's kind of a way to physically have like a moving routine you do to kind of get you into your body and not like all over the place.
Hmm.
So it's how I start my day. It's, you could do it for 30 or 60 minutes. I do it for 5 to 10,
Hmm.
but I figure cumulative effect of 5 to 10 every day. I mean, I used to pop out of bed and like race out the door. Now it's a little, more of a margin in the morning, and that is very balancing for me, and that's a part of it. So, whether it's the yoga or the meditation or the breath work, I love breath work too.
Hmm.
Something like that I think is really important.
Yeah, I've had a few guests on that have specialized like in breath work, and
Mhm.
um, I think it's one of those things where everyone can do it. That's like, it's free. It's not that difficult. It's just like you just got to practice it a little bit and just be conscious of it.
Mhm.
Um, and then obviously as an FDN practitioner, how did you incorporate that into your practice, and when did you start that?
Yeah, so, with all the different certifications, how it is, you always have like continuing education for them.
Yeah.
And I got board certified in holistic nutrition and then was kind of checking out what are the different areas I could get, my continuing ed points for, and then uh, basically found FDN that way.
Okay.
And what it is learning how to run functional labs like blood, urine, stool, saliva, and interpret them through a functional lens, looking for optimal ranges. So rather than waiting till somebody gets to a point of a diagnosis and needing prescriptions or being in a tough spot, get in front of it when you start seeing areas that could be optimized through diet lifestyle primarily. And I was like, that sounds really cool because in undergrad, I was exercise science pre-med and then ended up graduating with psychology, but I had all the science, all the math, and I always loved the science and just medical stuff. I just learned that's not the lifestyle for me,
Hmm.
but I still want to incorporate all those concepts. I'm like, this is totally, the mix of the concepts I like. And instead of dealing with sick care, is like promoting health and performance.
Hmm.
And then, having that flexibility. How it really came to fruition was during COVID when everything went virtual because all my work I was doing was in person, strength and conditioning and nutrition and cooking and all the things. And like, this is a perfect segue
Hmm.
to everybody got comfortable going virtual, and so that's kind of how it transitioned.
Very cool. Yeah, FDN, definitely a great program, great certification, and there's so many ways to test. How do you sort of incorporate that into your practice with clients, and which tests to use, which not to use?
Yeah. So I have a few different programs I run with people. So it kind of depends like what their history is, what their symptoms are, what their goals are.
Hmm.
So I have, different tiers, but, people can do anything from looking more at the energy management, because that was a huge piece in my, journey was, like we're starting to talk about, I used to eat very low fat, no fat, follow all the wrong rules really well. And that got me into a tough spot, like hormones and just like weight wise, I was too low, and then kind of blacking out. And I was like, I'm doing all the things, and when you're very dedicated and driven to do things, but the rules aren't written for you, they're kind of written for the masses that don't
Hmm.
necessarily apply to you. It doesn't support what you need. And so once I figured out, like, protein fat works better for me, still with carbohydrates, but just a little different recipe than maybe the general recommendation, all of a sudden my energy is in a really good spot. And I used to have big energy dips and spikes from all the processed carbohydrates. And so I incorporate continuous glucose monitors with people. Do you use those? Have you ever used one?
Yeah, yes, I have. Yeah, yeah. It's been a bit, but yeah,
It's kind of eye-opening, right? Like what different things do, but not just foods or drinks, but stressors and
sure.
how that can kind of impact your day. So that's a component. And then if I'm running labs with people, I do a Dutch. Dutch, if you're familiar with that, is a urine saliva, and it gets into your stress hormones. A lot of
Hmm.
people, when they hear hormones, think just sex hormones. It's that too. And upstream, as you know, the stress hormones kind of
Hmm.
you know, dictate what happens with the testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, and the balances there in your melatonin and with how well you sleep. And you know how important recovery and sleep is for whether it's gaining muscle or just staying mentally focused or just, being able to recover from anything. So that's one of them, a GI stool map, and that gets into your gut bacteria or your microbiome balance, as well as parasites, yeast, any fungi, any things going on that could be causing more internal stressors. And then how well you're digesting and absorbing your food, because nutrition isn't just what you eat, but it's what you actually digest and assimilate into your cells. Because we
Mhm.
can be eating the best diet for us, but if you're pooping it right out, it doesn't much matter. And so we need to make sure everything we're putting in is actually getting absorbed. So that's another one. And then I do a comprehensive blood work analysis. So it's all the things you do at the doctor, looking with tighter ranges, but I also incorporate like a full thyroid panel on it, not just the TSH, but the whole, free T3, free T4, the antibodies, the whole deal. Get into uh, the vitamins, minerals like D. I see that really low in people all the time, even coming off of summer when you'd think they'd be outside getting some sunshine. But then getting into like an advanced lipid profile, just to really dig into the particle sizes of their cholesterol, the LDL, the HDL, the sizes, the numbers. And then if people want to really go advanced, they can do MRT. It's a mediator release test, and that gets into food sensitivities, not allergies. It's different. There's allergies, sensitivities, and then intolerances. And they're all different, but they can be related and overlap. But it gets into your immune response to different foods. So, not like this is going to kill you, but like if you're chronically being exposed to something that's kind of bugging your immune system, it can result in brain fog, in joint pain, in weight sticking around the belly. And it can be from things that are good foods. But if your immune system's, um, not labeling something properly, or it's chronically exposed because of like a leaky gut situation, then it can have some disturbances there, which can create a lot of imbalances and just discomfort in a person's body. Get into micronutrient panel, so to know not just what's in your bloodstream, but in the cells. So it's inter and intracellular levels of of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and then total toxin. And that gets into environmental toxins, metals, molds, and mycotoxins. So
Hey everyone, quick interruption here. If you are looking to gain energy, lose inches around your waist, and build strength, well, look no further than my book, The Step Ladder System: 6 Steps to Lifelong Health and Vitality. What you get with the book is my full step by step plan and blueprint that I've worked with all my clients with, packed into one book. With part one, you're going to lay the foundation, tackle any common challenges that might come in your way. Part two is my 6 pillar blueprint: how to set yourself up with a solid plan and know exactly what to do when life throws any curveballs. And lastly, step three are learning to implementation, a plan for getting results over the next weeks and beyond. So there you have it. I'll leave a link in the show notes for my Stepladder System book. Now back to the podcast.
I don't have like one thing that I do for everybody. It really depends on what somebody needs. Some people are looking for that jump start, like, hey, I got to get my energy dialed. I am tired in the afternoon. I'm sleeping like crap at night. I don't feel like I'm recovering from my workouts. I'm relying on caffeine every day, like throughout the day. And other people are like, I know there's something going on with my gut, or some, like the, 40s, 50s, the hormones becomes a bigger topic of conversation. So it really depends on the person, and again, their interests, their history, and their goals.
Yeah, no, quite the comprehensive analysis for every client. I mean, everyone, it can be it's like solving a puzzle, right? So it can be complicated a bit depending on the individual. Um, Beyond the testing, is there some common theme that you see with a lot of people that you work with, like, or even with the testing? Is there something like you said, vitamin D comes up quite a bit? Are there certain other things like sort of markers that you see commonly with people?
Yeah, so I tend to find a lot of like highly driven, go-getter, overachiever, type A people. And the exact qualities that get people into that successful situation can also get them into an imbalance with like their cortisol, and DHEA is that counter hormone. So cortisol is breaking things down. You need that as part of your stress response, but then the DHEA is kind of the, counter to that that allows your body to repair, recover. It's upstream of your testosterone, estradiol. And so I'll see that get off. And if in what's kind of crazy is your body actually does really well in the short term when your cortisol's high. You feel awesome because you're like your body's releasing sugar into the bloodstream. You've got like an abundance of energy. You're like, yeah, I'm on. Like, and you can actually get a little bit addicted to the higher cortisol and adrenaline that can come with that.
Mm,
And you can operate for days, weeks, months, years, even decades. And there's a point when you hit the backside of the curve,
mm,
that's when you start noticing the symptoms. And that's usually when people start being like, oh, I used to do this all the time in my 20s, 30s, but like my same thing that's used to work isn't working. Or, oh, I start having that like belly fat. Like, what's going on? I'm doing the same thing I've always done. Why isn't it working for me anymore? And so it's pretty common that people burn it till they have nothing left. And like what should happen when you wake up, you should have this nice cortisol awakening response. So when you wake up, your cortisol should elevate and then it should start coming down. And that is necessary for survival. Like back in the day, if something's chasing you, it's your ability to like run from it, fight it, do what you got to do. And also today we need that just to deal with whatever the physical, mental, emotional stressors are. When our bodies are not capable of producing that spike, that's a very maladaptive response. And so I'll see people flatlined.
mm.
And that's when people are like, I can't really get out of bed, or they get out of bed for a little bit and they're like, I need to lay back down, or they get their best sleep from 7 to 9 a.m., or they get up, fold the laundry, and they're wiped. And so unfortunately, most of us need something to hurt enough before we start thinking about like doing something about it, rather
Yeah.
than getting in front of it. But that's really common. And the surprising thing for a lot of those people is doing less physically for a period of time and actually eating more food.
Mm,
They drop body fat and they improve their energy, they improve like their vitality, their skin, their sleep, all the things. But it's very counterintuitive to the message we've been given all
mhm,
along.
mm.
Just plow through it. Just you got this, and you get rewarded, right? You get rewarded for just like tuning things out. And athletes or high achievers are, I think, very good at compartmentalizing things or just like pushing through it because that's what leads to short-term success. But over time, without the breaks, then that breaks you down.
Mm. Yeah, those are great points. I mean, like you talk about cortisol, like it has that diurnal rhythm to it.
Mhm.
And you're saying that you should get that spike in the morning that gets you going, but you see a lot of people where that they don't get that. It's almost like they're in like this burnout stage where they've they've so used to just like pushing, 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 and
Mhm.
eventually the body just gives in.
Yeah. And that's when you're like, I need coffee to get through the day.
Mm,
And what coffee does is it really burns your adrenals even further. So you're really robbing from tomorrow to pay today.
mm,
And when you're in, kind of a bind like that, in the moment, you're like, yeah, I don't care about tomorrow. I need to function now. And then tomorrow you're in the same position. I need to function now. And then, the amount you have increases and the amount you need to notice a difference also increases. Your tolerance, increases. So the same amount has less effect.
And like you said, in order to sort of counteract that, sometimes you need to step back and
Hmm.
like not go as hard or just focus on like the recovery aspect of sleep and making sure that you got stress under control. And a lot of times that could help you can and under eating as well. I was going to ask you about that. Is you do see a lot of restriction, especially maybe with women where they're
Yes.
not eating enough and
Hmm.
yeah.
For sure. Because when your body's already in a stress state and then you're depriving it from food, you know how a lot of people are like, oh, I heard about this intermittent fasting. Like,
Hmm.
okay, let me just skip breakfast. Okay, so you're already stressed. And then you're telling your body, we're in a famine. We have no food source. So your body now is further stressed. And so what does it do? It kind of slows everything down, right? Because we don't know when we're going to get any berries or a bear or fish or anything. So we need to make the little bit that we have last as long as possible. All right, we know what happens there. Our metabolism slows down, thyroid slows down, all the things kind of shut down. It's a protective mechanism.
Hmm.
And um, we start breaking down muscles for fuel if we're, too far along that route, or if you go to the gym fasted and stressed, and especially women have a little different response than men, that further contributes to that situation of the body being under stress. Whereas in contrast, starting your day off with something, particularly some protein, or protein forward something, especially for women, just the hormones, there's just differences between men and women. And again, there's individual differences, gender aside. So, it's all nuanced. But, starting with something to tell your body, hey, I'm not in a stress state, you're safe. Okay, we can use this freely, and we can use it and send it to, muscles for repair. We can send it to the gut for digestion. We can send it to make immune cells. We can have it do the long-term projects. But what happens when we're under chronic stress, our body shuts down the long-term tomorrow projects at the expense of taking care of today. So long-term projects would be reproduction, so sex hormones. Digestion might not be around tomorrow to eat it, so digestive enzymes, the productions slow down or diminish, which affects the nutrients you're actually absorbing. Thyroid, slows down. All the things kind of shut down to handle today. And so if you're kind of in that over exercise, over training, over stress, under recovered bucket, your body will always prioritize that over tomorrow. So, and also with like teen athletes, they have high growth demands, high nutrient demands. And so when they're doing a lot of sports, a lot of training that's not well thought out conditioning wise, like there's not a plan to it,
Hmm.
they're at higher risk for overtraining, under recovering, and not getting the nutrients their bodies need for like the brain development, the bone development, the muscle growth. And so that's where both the nutrients, not just calories, but getting the actual building blocks and structures your body needs, as well as the recovery so your body can put all that together, is
Hmm.
super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all great points. I mean, I see it quite a bit where women are just under eating, and men too sometimes.
Hmm.
I mean, I used to be in the fasting. I came out with a journal, and I think it actually was a great sort of I should say like experiment, or sort of like um, just to see how I would feel in a fasted state doing certain things, and I don't regret it at all. But I also have learned that like I probably wasn't consuming enough for what I was doing, um, and now like if I need to fast because let's just say I'm on an airplane, I don't feel like
Hmm.
eating, like I sort of have that tool. I always
Yeah.
say it's a tool to use, but it can also be overused. And
Yes.
yeah, and I think it's important to know that balance. Yeah.
Yes, and I think our culture tends to take everything that way. If this is good, more is better.
Right. Right.
Whether it's hot, like the saunas, like cold plunges, fasting, like yes, weight training's good, but you don't max out your squats every day. You
Right.
know that that doesn't work, so it's all about what stress load can your body handle, and what type of recovery does it need to be put in the position where you're actually getting stronger, or having adaptive responses versus maladaptive responses. And then when you're talking about the fasting or the time restricted eating, I think that's a great exercise for people to do. And I think later in the day, even though socially it's like a little more awkward, that actually has more positive impact on the body composition than
Sure.
like skipping it first thing in the day. But that's a harder one to
Well,
sell.
yeah, I mean, I feel like as I've gotten older, maybe like we try to eat earlier,
Yes.
earlier in the day, give yourself time to digest the food. I think that'll help with quality of sleep. And now I coach golf, so like we have all our stuff in the afternoon, and like I try to get that meal in early, but it's a little bit later. But I truly enjoy eating earlier and being done. It's like even if it's like senior citizen hour, it's
I was gonna
fine.
say blue hair special. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've listened to a few of I've had Jay Feldman on a bunch, and Jay Feldman is sort of part of that sort of like pro metabolic um, lens, and they talk a lot about that as like he was sort of out of the Dr. Ray Peat. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Ray Peat, but he has some great work around like controlling the stressors and making sure those are like top priority.
Hmm.
Because like you said, if you're running on stressors, everything else takes a back seat, hormonal, um, reproductive, things like that. Even can be muscle sparing as well. So yeah, it's one of those things where initially you might be fine, right? Initially,
Hmm.
someone could be restricting and doing things and losing weight, but over the long term, that's when we could really run into problems.
Hmm. Exactly. Yep, there's the short-term game, there's the long-term game, and sometimes you start with the short-term game and transition, but some of the things that work for a short amount of time over too much time, then it's like diminishing returns or
Mm,
maladaptive
yeah.
returns.
And I like to ask this question to most of my guests I have on is like, what's one thing you've changed your mind on?
Hmm. I mean, there's several. Um, well, recovery, just along the lines of that, that's for sure
Sure.
one because I completely under recognize the value of it. I was a you can sleep when you're dead,
Mm,
just grind it out. More is more, not smarter is better, you know.
right.
And it probably took me to actually see my numbers on paper for that to make sense for me because it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's good for everybody else. Just like I don't need that. Like I'm I'm more
Hmm.
resilient than that. And then you'll like this with all the labs from FDN. I was running my labs several years ago, and it was a period of high stress. And did the labs, sent them in, went on this backcountry ski trip, skiing out, and blew out my ACL. And when I got my labs back on paper, my cortisol was through the roof, my DHEA was tanked.
Mm,
Um, like females, you have to do a certain day of your cycle. So then your hormones are in a position where there tends to be more injuries that time of, the cycle anyway. And like looking on paper, I was exactly the equation for this looks like an accident or an injury in the making.
mm,
And when you're under recovered with sleep, when you're not getting the best nutrients from food, alcohol is a stressor, caffeine can be a stressor, like done too much. I was overtraining, under recovering, I was doing all the things wrong. And the paper captured it, and I've never like had an injury like that in my life. I was like, that's interesting.
mm. Yeah, and could have definitely led to help, with that injury for
Yeah,
sure.
it wasn't setting me up for success, let's put it that way. And so that was
Right.
kind of like, all right, yep, I need to actually, you know, take this for myself and apply that.
Yeah. I feel like when it's 40 plus and it's like you got to listen to the body more and more.
Hmm.
Yeah. What you did in your 20s, it's not going to work in your 40s for the most part.
Yep, it can sneak up real fast.
Yeah.
And you can look good on the outside and still be kind of a mess on the inside. So that like you can tell if there's inflammation or something like not great from the outside, but you can't guarantee there's nothing going
Hmm.
on the flip side. So I think that's um, you know, probably the most underutilized free ergogenic aid is sleep, like quality sleep. And now there's been a lot more studies out on that, where you can see the data, but that was something I didn't really get 20, 30 years ago. And
Hmm.
now, just between athletes, between myself, just like if you do the same workout with a quality night's sleep versus not, like, or like pull-ups, like that's one thing that if I get a crappy night's sleep, I can't do nearly as many pull-ups as if I like had a solid week of, good sleep. It's just night and day different. Like you feel 50 pounds heavier. And so,
Well, on that note, what are your routines like to help you get optimal sleep?
yeah, well, now I try to have a little like wind down time, both like morning and evening, some margins in the day, which I didn't used to respect or value. So I try to, sit down. They say it just takes 6 minutes of reading to kind of calm your nervous system to get into that rest and digest or parasympathetic place
Hmm.
versus fight or flight or sympathetic. So I try to read, 10 minutes at least at night before bed. And then turning the lights down just to help that melatonin production because as your cortisol drops throughout the day, your melatonin should be increasing. So they're counter to each other. And again, I like to eat dinner earlier because sports schedules don't always allow that, or I'll eat earlier and then just like, have something later for the kids. But I just really having some space to kind of bring the energy down is like really important for me in my nervous system.
Yeah, not just you, but everybody, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know what I've been using? I have a red light lamp.
Ooh,
Yeah, and I keep that in the room, and so I'll put that on at night, and you can read with it and do whatever. You can even get the bulbs and replace the bulbs for your room. So
very
I
cool.
recommend that.
Which
If you,
one do you do?
I mean, there's so many now.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I have a red light panel in the basement. That's a separate thing. But I recently got a lamp, which I thought was a cool thing. You could travel with it too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, now there's so many companies that make them, but you don't need to spend a ton on it. It doesn't have to be crazy expensive because some of these panels are, but
Hmm.
you could just do like either the bulb to replace it or just like a little night light, and I think
Hmm.
that helps. And if you need to get up in the middle of the night and you need some light, you can put that on, and you're not putting the blue light on, and I think that can be very helpful. So
Very cool.
yeah. Well, yeah. What one tip? This is also another question I like to ask most of my guests. What one tip would you give individuals? Maybe they're starting out. They want to get their bodies back to what it once was, perhaps maybe 10, 15 years ago. What one tip would you give that individual?
I would say go to the grocery store and start simple. Pick one protein, one veggie, and one or two veggies, and then like if you're doing grains, like a rice or something like that, just make one meal a week. Like
Mm,
because it starts with a small step and doing something that's a little less overwhelming um, is going to have a much higher likelihood of sticking. And so if that's all right, I'm gonna like do breakfast once a week at home, or I'm gonna make one recipe a week. And it could literally be instead of doing no breakfast, I'm doing like scrambled eggs, you know, one day a week. And it's going, any action or behavior, whether it's positive or negative, has a propensity to increase. So just start with one and like have that be the goal and feel successful with it. And I highly believe that real food is going to be one of your biggest tools you can
mm,
implement because it's information for your cells. It's, you know, I mean, that alone is what you need, but like just your energy, everything that comes from that is going to be positive and build from there. And I think it's one of those things a lot of people have a negative connotation or thought about what cooking is. It literally can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like shrimp, some like steak, you like sear it really fast. And, veggies, same thing, you roast it or throw it on the pan right afterwards. It doesn't have to take much time and it can have profound impacts on your energy, your mood, your recovery, your sleep. So that is, but like you don't need to like cook every meal. You don't need to spend 2 hours meal prepping. People talk about like, oh, I spend all my Sundays. I don't. I cook a meal at a time, but I'll make extras, like you said, because if I'm
mhm,
going to make a mess of the pans or the cutting board, like let's have it last for more than a meal. So like I'll make a bunch of roasted squash. So then when I'm making some eggs, I can throw some in with that. Or if we're having steak, I can throw some in with that. So whatever you make extras, and then you're kind of mixing and matching. But just start with one because it's too overwhelming. I'd rather have people do one breakfast one day a week all year long than do 1 week of meal prep and be like, over it,
mhm.
going back to the old routine than the rest of the weeks of the month or the year.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That could be the first time someone has said that tip on
Oh,
the show.
really?
Well, yeah, but can be profound, I think, and start small, right?
Mhm.
And build from there. Um,
Have you heard of the book Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg?
I have heard of that book.
Yeah,
Yes.
I recommend that if you're into that, kind of understanding
Mhm,
the science, the why behind behavior change. And he in that book talks about, all right, if your goal is to floss, because after the dentist, people are like, oh yeah, I guess I should floss again. And they
mhm,
do it for like 2 days before the dentist and then stop. Start with just putting the floss on and doing one tooth. And that's the goal. Like it sounds
mhm,
ridiculous, but usually people like once they're there, it's like, well, okay, we can do a couple more. Or if the goal is like you're saying walking, just put your shoes on. You don't even need to go for the walk, but you're creating these neural pathways in your brain to
mhm.
reinforce new patterns and behaviors. And so the whatever like is going to be easiest to complete that neural pathway, like grabbing the shoes, putting the shoes on, that's starting the new pattern. So you want to do whatever the thing is that starts the new routine. Or if you like, oh, I go sit on my couch after work instead of like getting outside, put the shoes on top of the couch
Hmm.
where you can't sit on them. At least you have that mental cue, like a little reminder. Yep, I could do this. You might not, but at least you pause to think about it. And you can start, making little progress. And over time, you have the cumulative effects. And if you take one new thing a month or a quarter or a year, quarter after quarter, year after year, that has a compounding impact
Mm.
that is far greater than doing a 10-day detox where then you like go right back to binging afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I always say, like, prioritize what you want to do first thing, right?
For
Because,
sure.
if you're like, hey, you know what, I want to get walks in, do it first thing. Or,
Mhm.
yeah, I want to start working out, do it, whatever it is, like, at least for, I would say, majority of people, if you do it first thing, you'll get it done. And if you wait later in the day, that's when things can get awry.
Emergencies, something always comes up.
Yeah, yes, yes. Well, this is great, Katie. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Oh, my website, which is mypeak365.com. That's probably the best spot. And
Okay.
I do offer complimentary consultations if anybody's curious about what it is. You just have to answer some questions to give you the scheduling link to know that you're serious enough to book it. But it's no pressure. I really genuinely just want people to find the right fit, whether that's me or somebody else. I, offer other resources just so people can feel their best and kind of continue on their journey, whatever that is.
Yeah, love it. I'll put a link in the show notes for everybody to check out Katie and all her work. And yeah, this was a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on and sharing
Yeah.
all the knowledge.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the show. I know there's thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to listen to mine. I will put a link in the show notes if you want to connect with my guest. And if you are looking for one-on-one consulting with me, I will put a free 15-minute link so you can set up a call to see if you're fit for my 6-month health breakthrough program. So thanks again. Feel free to rate and subscribe. I would love that to help support the podcast. And till next time, have a great rest of the day, and I will see you on my next podcast. Thanks so much.